All right. Hello, everyone. Kyle A0Z. Welcome to the Thursday night stream. And tonight I have Max NG7M with me. Hello, Max.
Hello, everyone. Kyle, glad to be with you and
Yes.
joining here on the live stream. Hello to everyone.
Thank you for hanging out with us, Max. Max has got a YouTube channel. The description, his YouTube channel is in the description below. You should go and subscribe to Max. He does a lot of cool things on his YouTube channel. One of the cool things that Max does is he runs the NC7J cluster server. And we are going to talk about cluster servers tonight and all the cool things that you didn't know you could do with cluster servers. Max has got a video out there on all of the cool commands and filters that you can set. But what we're going to do is we are going to get into that, but we're going to do a little deep dive into history on not only the NC7J cluster server, but just cluster servers in general. So I guess the first thing we need to define is what is a cluster server, and why do ham radio operators depend and care on cluster servers? Can we start there and answer that, or should we start even at the beginning? Is that a good starting question there, Max?
That's a good start. I can kind of give you a quick whirlwind there. And do you want me to go ahead with that?
Sure, let's go. Let's get right into it. I'm rolling up my sleeves here.
Oh, okay. All right. And some of this may be redundant for folks, but we're going to kind of go back to the brass tacks. By the way, I didn't get licensed till '94, so a lot of this took place early on before me, and hopefully I get some of these facts correct. So if you go back, right, pre, the late '80s or whatever, I'm going to get the time frame maybe off, but hams that were chasing DX, right? They would typically have their buddies in town or whatever, and they would call each other, right? If a juicy DX was on the air, they would call each other on the phone, or maybe have
on 2 meters.
2 meters is very common in every metropolitan area. You'd have a 2 meter frequency set aside so you could announce that, hey, I'm working, VU4N on 14 whatever 22. And that was the way you shared the wealth of finding chasing DX. Well, and I don't have the time frame here, but let's talk about Dick Newell, AK1A, is really kind of the father of the original packet cluster, they called it. So you had Dick Newell, he put together a DOS application, and AX25 packet, right, was really hot.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s and early 90s too, really before I even knew about it. And so he created this DOS application that allowed you to use that packet cluster protocol, which is effectively 1200 baud half duplex, and users could connect via their 2 meter radios. Typically they would do that. And then not only that, you could connect multiple packet cluster systems together over radio too, right? So then you'd get this network of guys that could chat. There was chat capabilities over this packet cluster system, and a protocol he created called the PC protocol packet cluster protocol, which exists to this day. I mean, it's been going to this day. Dick eventually turned that whole system into a commercial product, and I think that kind of took him out of amateur radio. But that product he created was used like in communities in police station environment, right?
Yeah.
Where they would do that. Maybe you've heard of that, Kyle, but that's kind of the early beginnings of over-the-air packet cluster. So maybe I'll let you jump back in if you want to add to that.
Yeah, and so the early days, like you would have. So tell me if this is right. You would have your terminal node server controller.
TNC.
TNC, and you would connect that to like your 2 meter radio, and then you would blast out packets, and you would receive all the packets in, and it would just be would you connect to a server that everyone else was connected to, and that's how you got the replication of all of the all of the spots that were being sent to that server. Is that how it worked?
Right. So it would be like connecting to a BBS or they had
Yeah.
all they have. So you'd connect to a call sign. You'd get on 144.3.4, I think it was here in Utah. I can't even remember off the top of my head. And you could see the activity, right? If you were monitoring the frequency, you'd see all activity, and then you could connect to the call sign that the server was running on, and log in with your call sign. And then there are commands that you could send to see who was connected. You could chat with other users. But then by default, right, all the spots, there was a format of a spot. You could send a spot. You could say, hey, I'm on 7023, and I can hear this JA or
Right.
some DX, Falkland Islands or whatever. And then everybody that's connected would get that spot back. It would echo that to everybody else that was connected.
So
go ahead.
Was it only did it only replicate and you only saw the spots that people were sending that were connected to that cluster server or that packet server?
I'm sure early on that was the case.
Okay. Yeah.
But quickly, I think early on he designed it to where you could then use the net node protocol, right? You could go through nodes, and so connections in other areas could join in. So you'd have multiple cluster servers connected to each other, which, by the way, that still happens today over the internet. Same thing going on, but now it's all via TCP/IP.
Right.
And so you had this elaborate network of AK1A nodes connected together, all via typically 1200 baud half duplex, like I mentioned, for the users. And then eventually it got to where they were doing backbone connections with 9600 baud half duplex.
Yeah.
In fact, I did that. So early on, that's how I started out in 95 or somewhere in there. I got a copy of the AK1A stuff and started doing that. There was another guy in Utah that did it. I want to say Paul Anderson off the top of my head, W7PA, and I kind of took it over. He had moved on. And so from that point going forward, I started doing the radio stuff. In Utah, there's not a lot of HF guys, especially back then, that were doing it. But that's what got me started. And ever since then, I've been running that service. It's a good thing to provide to the amateur community since then.
Yeah. So then it migrated to more robust servers, and then finally it made its way to the internet, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so for years, I was a software engineer, and I worked at a small company that these buddies of mine I went to high school with started a software development company. And so I had the in, I conned them into letting me bring some radios in. So I had the RF node. So early on, right? I mean, we're talking 96, maybe now 97.
Yeah.
Most people, even at home, weren't even on the internet at that time.
Right.
But I was able to, I switched over and started using a Linux-based cluster server that was compatible with that PC protocol from AK1A. But I could tie in the radio side of it. So the guys doing X25 over packet radio,
they could still get on. Yeah.
So we had a 24/7 internet connection, good old frame relay back then.
Yep.
And so that kind of evolved, and I kept that going over the years to allow these, then I had the world at my hands. I could get connections to other internet clusters from all over the world.
Yeah. So then the replication started to happen, where you could get, not only were you were sending out spots that were heard in Utah and around Utah, but you were replicating spots that were potentially being spotted all over the globe, right?
Exactly. And back then, of course, before the whole skimmer, these are topics you could do a whole nother roundtable on, the whole skimmer side of spotting.
Yeah.
On CW and then RTTY, and now, of course, the FT modes. There was still enough bandwidth typically to handle those feeds over packet radio. But quickly that became just overwhelming, depending on what you could filter with the packet radio commands based on your login. And we'll eventually get to that. We'll do some live demos here. I think I'm going to go back to the basics.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of do that. But it's kind of a mystery, right? How do all these spots, somebody is working somebody on the air on this frequency at this time, how do they echo that to the rest of the world, saying, hey, I'm sitting here in Utah on this frequency, and I just worked, whatever, W8S, right, on Swains Island, on this frequency, and I worked them up 3 or up 4 or up 5, whatever. So
So we talked about, you provided the RF side that people could still get in on RF, and then the internet exploded, right? And now we're connecting these servers via the internet. What did you run your cluster server on in the early days? Was it just a PC that was running a flavor of Linux, and that's what you ran? And I'd like to hear what you run today. But what was the hardware that you ran on it, back in the day?
Boy, early on, the first one I was dabbling around with it, you maybe have 1 or 2 guys connected. That was like amazing to see somebody using the service. That was just on a PC. I suspect it was Windows 95, running out of running out of a DOS window, right? Which was native DOS then with Windows 95. But then quickly, that was a good catalyst to learn Linux too. So where I worked, I found out that there was this Linux-based system written in C, and it used, a common database. I'm trying to remember the type of database that it used. So then, it was some 386 probably at the time back in 96.
Yep.
That was sitting under my desk in the office, and I probably spent a lot of time fiddling with that instead of working. But it had the capability to interface with a TNC and make telnet connections to other cluster servers to, create that worldwide feed of those spots.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Does that kind of give you an idea? And then eventually, after I evolved to where the internet was, beyond dial-up connections, I ended up hosting the server for many years. I did it at the business there, and then it ended up either at my friend's GMW 7 CT Whiskey 7 Charlie Tango in Layton. He's just east of me here in Utah. I'm now in Syracuse, and for years now it's been hosted primarily at my house. And I think in I kept those RF connections going till probably, I can't remember, 2008, maybe 2007. And it's just too much data, right?
Yeah.
And everybody had the internet. It didn't make sense to keep the RF side of it going.
Yeah, gotcha. And before the show, we were talking about replication. So you've got the cluster server that you're running at your house today, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people get on the internet and they'll get on, DX Spider or DX Heat or, these very graphical interfaces, which that wasn't the case back whenever we started with cluster servers. It was all, and we're going to show an example of this. It was all telnet and text based, and we're gonna show some of that. But now, people have taken all that information and put it on the web and made it pretty and being able to filter, which is great. But there is, I still like the old telnet cluster interface where you can see what's going on. I can do some manual filters. It is that's what I went to college in the early 90s, so that's what I grew up on too, on all of the old DOS and telnet stuff. But we were also talking about the replication and the back end and how that kind of works. And you were kind of explaining to me that there's 3 different types of servers out there. And one of the questions that I had was, I've noticed, I'm compounding questions here. I've noticed that some cluster servers replicate with others and others don't replicate with all of the rest of them. So I'm wondering if you could kind of give us some insight and explain like some of the different cluster servers and how they replicate and why there are differences between all of the servers. Can you explain some of that to us?
Sure. Well, I can't. Well, yeah. So let's talk about that PC protocol that Dick Newell created. It's
Okay.
a very simple text-based protocol. You think of like XML or HTTP, or there's all these protocols behind the scene where you can, in a standard way, you can communicate across. It's text really, with a definition of, PC code X and PC code Y, with data after that means something. So that persists to this day and has been extended. And so all of these server side applications that are running all over the world now, one in my shack here on a Xeon, Windows 2012 server, 18 core 36 thread server that I run here 24/7.
Yep.
Is using a Windows version of software, and we can talk about that too.
Okay.
That supports that protocol. So there's I see really three main different versions of the server side code out there that supports the PC protocol primarily. So you have the original AK1A stuff on DOS that really doesn't exist anymore, and there was one called CLX that was on Linux. I don't think that's maintained anymore. But the three primary ones are AR cluster.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming that's an amateur radio cluster, and that was created by Terry Gerdes. I'm probably slaughtering his last name, and that's AB5K. He wrote a Windows version in VB6, he called it version 4.0, that kind of took over all the Dick Newell stuff from DOS. And we lost Terry back in 2017. There's a story there too.
Yeah.
And so you have the AR cluster version, which I run. He wrote a version in C# that came out in around 2012. That's the version I run to this day.
Okay.
Here on my server. So you've got AR, and they all support telnet. So all the users telnetting in, right? They telnet in. And so then the other really popular one is Victor Echo 7 Charlie Charlie. And my goodness, why can't I think of his name off the top of my head? I should know. Good grief. Anyway, I should know that. So, and these are all good systems. I just chose to do the Windows one for me, but the VE7 CC stuff is very popular. There's a lot of servers running VE7 CC. And then he also has a client application that some find confusing once they figure it out and they really like it, to help create the filters at the server. And then it creates a local telnet server, which is confusing, that you connect your ham radio applications to, contesting software or DXing software typically. So that's the second one. The third one is DX Spider, which is really popular in Europe and more of kind of the non-North America kind of side of it.
Yeah. So whenever I put a spot on DX Spider, I noticed that it didn't replicate to other cluster servers. So I was thinking that it, like, all of the cluster servers would replicate one another, but I didn't see it come back up on like yours or VE7CC for some odd reason. Maybe it was an anomaly that I saw, but that was one thing that I noticed whenever I was putting spots on the Spider, it wouldn't replicate to some of the other servers. So that's why I got in my brain that maybe some of them didn't replicate with one another.
Yeah, so that gets a little political in some cases, and other things that are going on. The sysop of the server may only replicate spots originating from a certain geographical location.
I see.
Or the default filter when you logged into DX Spider, they may be filtering spots that are originating from certain countries.
Gotcha.
So for example, well, it's kind of a big nut to crack here because it's kind of confusing for guys new in the hobby. So these server connections, I'm sitting here in Syracuse, Utah, running this software 24/7, paying the electrical bill on that server. But it has multiple connections to other sysops servers, and they may be a VE7CC server. It may be a DX Spider server. They all can interoperate via that PC protocol. And so if you connect to 2 or 3 of these servers out there, typically you're going to have, at the server side, you're going to have that worldwide feed of every spot that gets spotted. So if you go to DX Heat on the web and you manually spot a station there, it's going to end up on NC7J and
right,
echoed out here from Syracuse, Utah. But guys connect to me from all over the world.
Yeah,
right.
Gotcha.
And so, is that kind of answer that?
Yeah.
Really, maybe we ought to talk about why do this? You know, what's the point here?
Yeah.
And why do you'll also the big boy, I hate to say big boys, but the hardcore DXers and the hardcore contesters would never use DX Heat. They would never use a web-based interface. And maybe we can talk about that and why. If you really want to control and get right at that core raw data, you're going to have to get familiar with how telnet works to these systems typically.
Yeah, because typically whenever like a hardcore contester, they are going to fire up N1MM or whatever their favorite logger is, and they're going to connect to like your cluster server or VE7CC or something, another cluster server that is on the net, and they are going to log in and they are going to pull down that raw data so they can manipulate that data, and that N1MM can tell them exactly where things are spotted on the bands in real time, right?
Right, exactly. So there's kind of 2 primary purposes here. You're chasing DX, general logging, right? You're just sitting in your shack chasing DX, or you're in a contest. And the problem you have now is you can't deal with a worldwide feed of skimmer spots and human spots. So you want to let the server side do that. So you want to connect to a server and filter down based upon your station.
What are you looking for?
Yeah, you may have an endfed wire up 25 feet over a tree in your backyard, or you may have multiple towers with stacked beams. And so it's just noise in some cases if you're getting all this spot data. And why do you care about a station that spotted another station from Croatia? He's operating in Croatia or England or Italy or whatever, right? You want spots that are pertinent to you. So the power users, let's use that term. The power users are going to make a telnet feed from their contest software or their DX logging software, like DX Lab Spot Collector. It's one of the utilities of DX Lab. And they're going to create a filter at the server to filter down the spots that they're interested in, and then maybe do some additional filtering at the software side in Spot Collector, in the example I gave for DX Lab, or in N1MM, for example. There's a little bit of filtering you can do on the client side too. So there's kind of a happy medium there. You don't want to get 6,000 spots, in 15 minutes in a CQ Worldwide CW contest and let your client application N1MM try to deal with all those spots.
Right.
I mean, you kind of do it, but the smart operators are filtering it down at the server typically. Yeah.
Ken, we're going to get to your comment. Ken says you want to filter on spotter location in a diameter around your QTH. We're going to get into that. Max is going to show us some really cool filter commands that we can do on the server side to help filter down all that stuff. So stay tuned here. Another question that I wanted to ask was why, and maybe we don't know the answer, why have we not, actually 3 questions. 1, why are we still on telnet? 2, why is always the telnet like 7,300 or 7,400 or something like that? And let's, maybe we should do number 3 at the end, but like, is there a future for maybe, API calls or JSON data or, some of this advanced stuff for cluster servers? Maybe we don't ask that one right now, and we tackle this one at the end of the show. But telnet and 7,300 or 7,373, or why are we still stuck on telnet, and where did that port come from?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, good questions. Now the protocol that PC protocol initially developed by Dick Newell, AK1A, right? It's just ubiquitous now, right? It's hard to change that, and so it works. It's not pretty. It's it's like from the '80s.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could encapsulate that in JSON or whatever, right? You could do some really cool stuff now, but it's just persisted even into the skimmer spotting world. Now the connection port, like in the internet world over TCP/IP, right? That there's default ports for certain protocols, like
Right.
HTTP. The default port's 80. HTTPS, SSL, it's 443.
Right.
Well, in telnet, the default port is 23. So for years, my server ran on the default port. So if you had a telnet client that used the default port, you just connect in. The problem with that is telnet is very insecure.
Yes.
And there's problems. Depends on the server-side software. So even for years, I ran on that default port, and it's unbelievable the attacks you would get from password list attacks,
Yeah.
where you get these systems. They default, right. If you have the default telnet port open on your server, you're just opening yourself up to so much traffic. It's unbelievable.
It's a honeypot.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just a honeypot.
And so I gave up on the default telnet port eventually, and it just I don't know how it came to be, but 73, best regards. Somebody came up with the idea of using 7373, and it may have been because 73 was in a weird default port range, so they just decided on 7373.
I
It's
did.
a ham radio.
Yeah, I never put the. That's why I'm slow. I never put the 2 and 2 together. Be like, oh, it's 73. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So to get my server, I get it off port 23. Nobody's attacking port 7373.
Right.
Really, right. And then the port that's kind of landed for the telnet servers for the FT modes, which is a fire hose of data right now. Typically they'll be on port 7374. How creative.
Yeah.
So that's what mine is. If you connect to 7373, you're going to get CW Skimmer Spots, RTTY Skimmer Spots during the contest, and human spots generated by humans out there. If you connect to port 7374, you're going to get the FT mode spots.
Gotcha.
Worldwide on either one.
Gotcha.
But you should filter them. We'll get into filtering that too.
Yeah.
Did I probably droned on there on
No,
that.
no. You answered all my questions. And but right before, let's get into some filtering and but do cluster servers typically on big contest weekends, do they kind of do some default filtering in the background, and they're only like RTTY, right? RTTY Roundup, CQ Worldwide RTTY. You're going to find a lot of RTTY stuff going on, or spots going on your server. Do you mostly pare that down to say, all right, I'm only going to take RTTY for these 48 hours, or do you just leave it wide open?
Years ago, there were contest modes that you could run on the server because, you had less horsepower on the server side and less bandwidth, especially during the RF packet cluster day, packet days. But now there's so much bandwidth and so much horsepower. No.
Gotcha.
So I don't change anything at all at the server.
So you just run it wide open.
I will say we should have another roundtable on the skimmer side.
We will. I'll have you back on, and we'll talk all about the skimmers and all that. Yeah, I now I'm fascinated. Now you wet my whistle here on all this stuff.
And I should qualify. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm sure there's other sysops and guys out there that know more than I do. But on the RTTY skimming side, I don't run the software outside contest because to skim, 10 bands or the contest bands, it uses a lot of horsepower. So typically nobody's doing RTTY anymore since the FT modes came about outside contests.
Yeah.
So
just real quick, what skimmer do you use real quick?
So there's an RTTY skimmer that's written in Pascal, believe it or not, by
Pascal.
VE7NA off the top of my head, Alex. And so that interfaces with a single board computer called a Red Pitaya. See, we're getting off the rails here.
Yeah.
So that's a single board computer that can skim. I've got a multi-band antenna here, and it'll skim up to like 16 bands wide bandwidth. And so that's another topic for another day. I think.
So I'd like to bring you back on, because we've got a Red Pitaya. We just haven't put it up in the contest station yet, and so we're gonna do that soon. So we'll do another stream on skimming and the Red Pitaya and all that software. But it seems to me that technology has gotten so fast and bandwidth has gotten so great that you kind of the world is your oyster here at with Skimmer Spots, and you can just run whatever you want to, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now for the typical ham, unless they're really nerds like us, you don't really need to run a local skimmer server, especially if you're in a bigger populated area, East Coast or West Coast or even Midwest. You can find another ham that's done what I've done and connect to them, and they've done all the work, and just get the spots from them.
Yeah.
Because even at your contest station during the contest, when you're transmitting, you're not going to be skimming as well, right? Because so you'll desense the receiver on the skimmer.
Right. Yeah, we turned it off. Yeah.
So if you have a bigger contest station, you're probably going to be connected to the worldwide feed and getting spots from additional servers.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Do you want to connect to the server and show some examples? Is that a good time to?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay.
And so we've hopefully nobody's overwhelmed. Take your time. There's a lot of videos out there. So you're a ham. You just got into radio, and you want to have a better way of figuring out when the bands are open and who is working who on different bands, right?
Right.
The phone call network's not there. The 2-meter network's not there. But you've heard about this DX packet cluster thing, and you want to figure that out. So let's just go back to the basics. Just think about the fact that you can connect via telnet. It's good to understand the basics, because then when you get into software and software filtering on your side, it'll make more sense. So just think about it. You're going to connect to a server that has every human spot that's posted real time and every skimmer spot that's posted real time, all at the same time. You have all those spots, but it's going to be overwhelming. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share a simple telnet application, and we're going to just show the raw connection in the input and output that takes place, that goes back to the Dick Newell days, that still takes place today. So let's do that.
Okay.
So we're like 35 minutes in here, Kyle. So maybe we do a part 2, right, or something.
Yeah,
like
we'll
that.
do a part 2.
Okay, let's see here.
I could go another 4 hours on this.
Okay. All right. So now everybody watching, if you're an old hat at this is not going to be super exciting. This is just a commercial telnet application. There's a telnet application built into Windows that you can install and use that. But so we're going to just connect via port. I'm clicking on the share screen like a moron here. I was trying to do the menu up here on the share, because I've got them both going. Let's see here. So we're just gonna connect here. Let me just show you the connection properties here to connect to NC7J. And there's a lot of noise on the screen here, right? So what we're gonna do is connect to a host name here. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yep.
And that's dxc.nc7j.com. And DXC stands for DX cluster. DX cluster. And this host name will resolve to an IP address that gets port forwarded to a computer sitting in my shack here, a server. And it's going to listen for connections on port 7373. Okay. So we're going to connect. And you got to think about this. Like in the world of a web browser, it's similar to a web browser, but web browsers are not constantly connected, right? You open your web browser, you connect to a server, you send a command to that server, it sends text back to you effectively at a base level. And then you have software that renders that text into something that makes sense to you. and then you type stuff in and hit enter, and it sends text back to the server, and the server responds to that. It's no different than telnet, really, at the real low level. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to connect to port 7373, and it's going to connect to a server here. And anybody in the world can do this right now. So I'll connect, and immediately what is returned to you is you're connected to NC7J. This is exactly what it looked like over AX25 packet radio too.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, I give you a little preamble here, and it tells you can go look at the manual here if you want to, and we can log in. Let's use a call, somebody that's connected here on the live stream. Is anybody there?
It's let's W1KAL.
W1KAO.
KAL Lima.
Okay, Kilo Alpha Lima. Okay, and case does not matter. So hopefully he doesn't mind right here. So we're going to connect, and I suspect he's never connected to this server. So now the server side has created an entry for W1KAL, and it has a default filter set up to only pass, and I set that up as the system operator. He's only going to see human spots originating from North America.
Okay.
And so there's commands now that I can send. If you go to the manual here, right? If you go to that address here, you can look at a manual. It's kind of old school HTML, but there's a manual that'll show you the commands that are available. Okay. And so now I've got a split screen. So we're going to enter commands down here. And then when I hit enter, that command will go to the server, and the server will respond. If I type in crap, right, it's going to say unknown command. And so kind of the basic command out there is show DX. And so that'll show you the last 25 spots that have been spotted meeting that filter criteria, which is only originating spots from North America that were created by humans. Okay. So there, right, the last spot on the screen is VU4N. I should go and I need that bad. So I mean, right. So those are the last spots that came in right now, and I'm surprised there haven't been some spots show up at the moment for the default filter. Now I can also ask the server, what is the current filter for this login? So W1KAL, and so I can type in show DX filter, say DX filter, and it'll show you the filter. Now we're running AR6, right? So these commands are specific to this flavor of the server software. Okay. So we mentioned early on that there's VE7CC and there's also DX Spider. The command structure is similar, but it's very different in the year 2023.
Gotcha.
Okay, so here's a spot that came in real time.
Yep.
So your computer has this persistent TCP/IP connection to my server here in Utah. And for the filter, not skimmer spots, we don't want skimmer, and the spotter continent is North America. So you're only going to see spots originating from North America, VC8VAO, spotted W2M/8 on 3888 right here. And so that spot met that criteria. Maybe you want to jump in, Kyle. Jump in if you need some clarification.
No. I'm following everything that you're laying down here. If you got questions, put them in the chat here about what Max is doing. But yeah, it seems straightforward so far.
Okay, good. So this is the raw form, right? We have this application that's displaying to you these spots. There's no other interaction with your logging software or your contesting software. This is the base level. So you should study the manual for the server you're connected to. If you decide to connect a VE7CC server or DX Spider, you'll be able to find information either on YouTube or the internet for the command set.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is all AR6 is what we're talking about here. So there's other commands, and you can typically shorten the commands, and this goes back to Dick Newell's protocol. The commands, like I can, instead of saying show, SHOW DX, I can type in SHDX. There's shortcuts.
Gotcha.
So there's a command to show users, show what users are connected to my server right now. So there's all the call signs that are connected to my server right now. And one of them, of course, is going to be W1KAL, should be in the right here. Right?
Yep.
W8FJ's on here, right? John, he's in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I mean, I get to know these guys. K7UT, Daryl's in Utah. So these guys consistently use my server, one of many, many servers all over the world. But all these servers all over the world are sharing that full, massive fire hose of human spots originating anywhere in the world, and skimmer spots originating anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Okay, but on a cluster server that has human spots like this one, it would only include skimmer spots that are CW and RTTY. Right, the FT mode skimmer servers are going to be a different connection because there's too much.
There's just too many.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
Okay, so this will be a good demo. If I turn on the worldwide feed, let's just see what that looks like. So I'm W1KAL. There's also, nobody uses these commands. There's also a call book here. Is he okay if I show his address here? Maybe I wouldn't do that, but I'll do mine. So I could do show ham NG7M. You can look people up. I mean, this makes sense.
That's cool.
Back in the day. So I could do show shortcut ham AA0 Zulu.
Yep.
And I mean, your address is available on QRZ.
Yeah,
right?
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't want to
come over for dinner tonight. We'll have some spaghetti.
So nobody's using this anymore, but there's capabilities, and my server on a weekly basis downloads the latest FCC and Canadian call sign database. So this data is up to date on a weekly basis.
Oh, wow.
And so that gets important too when we start filtering here. So, okay, so now I want to see all the spots across the world globe, right? So I need to change the filter. So I can show DX filter. And the filter right now is not skimmer and spotter continent North America. If I want to clear that out and get everything, I can type in set DX filter with no command, and get ready, folks. Here it comes. Here comes the fire hose. And so now you're going to start getting all the CW skimmer spots and all the human spots worldwide.
Gotcha.
And, right, we're on a weekday here, Thursday evening. There's not that much data.
But I mean, there's quite a bit of data there.
Yeah, and it's used, look at all the DX servers that are out there. And so most of the spots here are CW skimmer spots. So let me turn off the feed so I can send a command set DX output off, and it'll stop. It's like I can stop it, and then I could scroll around here and say, ooh, you can quickly identify the human spots because they're not using the comment field in a standard way. The skimmer servers, it's standardized. It'll say the mode, and then it'll say the relative signal strength and the speed of the spot coming from, some skimmer in China here.
Yeah.
Right? Who cares if this guy in China can hear an E20, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. So let me turn the feedback on, set DX output on. Boom. And all these settings are saved on the server based on your call sign. So if you logged in with an SSID like -1234, each SSID for that call sign is separate.
Would save the last filter. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
Don Izzo, Smoke Signals RF, he has, just real quick, can you he said Max mentioned the term skimmer, and I understand, we could do a deep dive into skimmer, but from a high level, what does that mean? And he says, sorry if it was already explained. Yeah. Can you give us just a high level of whenever you say skimmer, what do you mean?
Yeah. So I got to think about this. Back in 2007, 2008, it was really controversial. And I'm sure there's people I'm not going to give credit to, but Alex, VE7NA, is a very smart guy, figured out and wrote code using, this Bayesian model to where he could, given a bandwidth, analog bandwidth, he could convert that into a digital stream effectively. I'm not sure quite how he does it, but he could decode CW across a wide bandwidth. And he wrote a piece of server code called CW Skimmer. There's a user version, and then there's also a server version. And we really need to do another roundtable on this. But guys like me will set up a multi-band antenna, connect that into a computer that can listen to all that analog data, feed it into this server application, and it will in real time decode users out there across wide bandwidth on multiple bands that are calling CQ and also just signing their call. And then feed those spots as though it was humans spotting them into the cluster network.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't got, yeah. And we've done that. There's software that does that for CW, for RTTY, and for FT8. And
yes.
And we haven't gotten to the point where AI and voice recognition does that for single sideband, but I'm sure before, hopefully by the time you and I leave this planet, that somebody will solve that, and maybe we'll have AI generated SSB spots that automatically get pumped into the cluster.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. So yeah, sideband's taking kind of a hit right there. I don't think there's as much sideband activity, especially with the FT modes.
Right.
Unfortunately. Now I got to go on a tangent real quick here.
Yeah.
So Danny K7SS, who I love to hear on the air, cracks me up. He's up in Washington. I know exactly what's going on right now. He is doing the Thursday night sprint right now on CW. And so a CW skimmer, W6XY, probably in California, I'm guessing, you never know that, spotted him operating on 7042, which is a useless spot because he's in a sprint. He's going to be moving around. But
yeah,
but it's fun, right, to get into, knowing all these guys.
Well, so, and there's so much stuff you can learn just by watching the cluster server and watching these spots come across, right?
Yeah, you can.
You can literally you can literally see what propagation is like, based on, I mean, you're doing some assumptions on call sign location, 5 land, 6 land, 7 land, but you're essentially taking a look at, once you know what you're looking at, you can kind of see what propagation looks like.
Exactly. But it's not helpful, right, to you in, you're in Missouri, right? I'm in Utah. You want to know what's pertinent to you for your station size.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We got about 10 minutes left. Okay, so here we got this massive feed coming from everywhere right now. Right, we're going to show the DX filter again. And it's off. So let's say I only want to see spots from North America. And I want to see skimmer spots. So I can just type in set DX filter, skimmer, and spotter cont. All these commands are in that link. You should put it in the description of your video when you're done here. Spotter continent equals North America, NA. So now you're going to see the spots. You see all these spots coming from skimmers in Europe, and like the S50 and the YO4 in Romania, right? YO4. So now they're going to stop. I just set the skimmer to say, only show me spots that are originating from North America. So now let me stop that. Set DX output off. So right, everything here. And did you notice there was a spot from like a Canada V6? I think there was one from a skimmer in ZF9. That's North America still. TI7, North America still. So there's some other things we should look at here. Let me turn the output on again. We really need to have a follow-up here because we're going to run out of time, Alex.
We can go a little bit less or more.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Okay, so I turned it on. Let's weed that down to originating state. Okay. Or states. So I can type in a command that's saved on the server. So the next time I connect with this call sign or call sign combination with an SSID, it'll be persistent. Set DX filter, skimmer, and not skimmer, and spotter state equals Utah, California. I'm trying to think of some states with some skimmers. Washington. I'll do Missouri. I don't know if there's any skimmers.
No, I don't think so.
Let's do. I'm just going to pick somewhere we'll get some spot activity, like I don't know, PA. This is going to give us quite a few, and then I can hit enter. Now immediately, the originating spot is going to be limited to those states, and so skimmer and not skimmer, and so I'm like expecting to see some more spots come here.
So I'm assuming whenever people set up skimmer location, or I'm sorry, or cluster servers that have skimmer capability, they say, "Hey, I'm in Missouri, I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm in Oregon," and therefore, or it's from the, oh, you're filtering, so those locations you are filtering by the FCC database from the DXDE and whatever their call sign is, right?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Gotcha.
This might be better here. So let's do this filter, because I've got to separate skimmer spots and human spots. So I'm going to say skimmer spots, and the spotter state originates in Utah, California, Arizona, Nevada, Missouri, and Kansas, or
Okay.
not skimmer, and spotter continent equals NA. And I didn't get that right. Wow. What did I do wrong? So it's telling me, right, I got it wrong. Let's see here. Set DX filter skimmer and spotter state equals, not skimmer, and spotter con equals NA. Skimmer and spotter
state or skimmer.
Oh, and not. Wow. Set DX. Let's just stick with skimmer spots.
Okay. Sounds good.
And spotter. I'm trying to be cognitive of the time here. Spotter.
Oh no, don't worry about the time. Don't worry.
Let's just do Utah and I don't know, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And what's going on here? Set DX filter. Did I just type that in wrong? Skimmer. We're doing this live, everyone. Spotter state equals Utah and PA. There we go. I probably was just, fat fingering something.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have the output off? Set DX. No,
there it goes. There it goes. There's K3LR.
Yeah. So Tim K3LR has had somebody set up a skimmer at his superstation, right? We all need his station at our home QTH. So here, how do we know that those spots are originating from Utah and Pennsylvania? You can turn on an extension. I think this might be unique to the AR cluster server. We can turn on an extension here in the spotter comment. This area is called the spotter comment.
Okay.
That's persisted over the decades. We can turn on a set DXEX extension spotter state. Now, over here, it will on the fly, the server will do an on the fly FCC call sign lookup.
Oh my gosh.
So there's other skimmer servers in Pennsylvania. There's W2NAF and there's W7ZI. Right, he has an amazing skimmer server. He hears really well. The guys doing the Thursday night sprint are active. N3QE, Tim, I think his name, right? Yep. They're doing the sprint right now. W3RGA. These guys are doing the sprint. So it's showing you what state that those spots originated in, and it's not just based on the call area. It's a real up-to-date call sign lookup against the FCC database that's only no more than a week old.
Right. Oh, wow. I had no idea that you could do that. That's awesome.
And so, well, where are we at here? So that gives you the kind of the power there. Again, right, set DX filter, skimmer equals, you can also do skimmer and do CQ zone equals 6.
Yeah. Don asked, can you do ITU regions? And if
You can. The question there is if it's simply doing that based on call sign district.
yeah.
So maybe I'm thinking of ITU. I was getting mixed up. Set, DX filter, skimmer, and ITU zone. Zone 3, right?
Zone 4 for me. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can do that. You can combine those. Now,
Okay.
I would direct everybody. It's an older video. You mentioned it at the first of our live stream here, Kyle. I've got like a part 1 primer that kind of goes through what I'm showing you here, and I think it's about 15 minutes long. It'll give you a good overview of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Typically I would stick with a skimmer state, but I do use the ITU zone and CQ zone sometimes. I'm surprised we're not seeing some spots there.
Gotcha.
Here, I think I've got a history here. We can just go back to the Utah and PA
Pennsylvania. Again. Yep.
We should see some spots. There they come. But, we probably need another session now. Well, this is all fine and dandy. I can sit here and look at a real-time telnet feed in my simple telnet client, but I want it integrated into my general DXing software like DX Lab or, the other logging systems out there. Or I'm in a contest and I want all those spots to show up integrated in my N1MM or WinTest or whatever contest logging software. Here's John, K4BAI, in Georgia. He's in that sprint.
Yep.
The sprint's going to be over in 2 minutes. We'll stop seeing those spots. So that kind of is the whirlwind tour. It's been a fire hose of information here, everybody. But what you want to do, if you want to be a power user, you're going to get familiar with the type of cluster server that you're connecting to. Here's a spot for my skimmer server, NG7M. I just heard NA5 on, in the sprint there. The WA7LNW is in Utah. See, Jack down in southern Utah. He hears really well with his setup. But you want to become a power user, and it's not as hard as you think. Figure out a cluster server system that you want to connect to, whether it's the VE7 CC stuff or a DX Spider. Connect to one, go look at the documentation and start playing around with the telnet commands to filter those spots down to what you're interested in, depending on your current operating style. General DX. I don't want to see any spots for North America. Why do I care about North America or VE land or XE land or whatever? I only want to see countries that I'm interested in. And then I can kind of get an idea of the propagation and then do some additional filtering in my logging software. Or during the contest, I only want to see CW spots. I want to see RTTY spots originating from states around me that have CW skimmer servers.
Yeah. Well, everyone is clamoring for a part 2, so I think we'll have to do a part 2 and maybe get into what do you use for your general logger? Do you use the DX suite?
I do, DX Lab suite, and it's super powerful, and it's very confusing, I think, to guys at the beginning. It's a collection of different applications, but there's a lot of great logging software out there. DX Lab suite is free. It has just an overwhelming set of features, and I like it. You always have your pet peeves, but for contest logging, I use N1MM. There's other good contest loggers. All these applications have the capability to connect to a telnet feed and abstract what you're seeing here on the screen into information that's displayed integrated with the logger that allows you to jump around to those spots to see if you can hear them and work them.
Yep. Got it.
The general logging stuff's going to track your DXCC totals, and you can set them up to text you or send you an email if something is spotted that you need, kind of like you'd see with DX Alert. That's kind of a web interface that might be better for sending you text messages. But for general logging, the power users, the big time contesters and the small time contesters that are power users, they're going to be doing this. They're going to be connecting to their favorite cluster or multiple clusters for redundancy and setting up filters on the server side typically, and on the client side.
Yep. Yep. So we talked about cluster servers. We talked about how to connect. So if anybody wants to connect to your cluster server again, it's dxc.nc7j.com. And it's port 7373, right? And the protocol is telnet, right?
That's correct. Now, one cool thing we can run over a little bit. One cool thing in N1MM that those guys have done an amazing job at is anybody running N1MM, if they connect to a cluster server and they opt in, the N1MM dev team has a server and they keep track of all the telnet connections that their users are connecting to, and they rate them by quality.
Yeah.
And so if you pull up the telnet window in N1MM, you can say, show me a list of all the active telnet servers in North America. And then you can pick one of those. That's the best thing I've seen to try to keep an up-to-date list of telnet servers around the globe, is what the N1MM devs have done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typically whenever I get on, I will open up my telnet window and take a look at where, who's connected, how many sessions they have connected. And typically I connect to either yours or VE7CC. Those are the two main ones that I connect to. And they usually only on big, huge contest weekends you'll see those, fill up quick, and you might have to connect to a secondary. But the N1MM guys have done a really great job on programming and keeping that thing up to date. And so it's got some really cool features.
They have, yeah. It's like, even if you don't use 1MM, just that feature of showing you the active telnet clusters is good. So pick the one they're all good. The DX Spider, VE7 is, he's done some great stuff too. Yep.
Gotcha. Again, in the description below is Max's YouTube channel. He put out a video, I think it's been 7 years, where he goes into a deep dive on all of these commands. Go down and subscribe to Max, and then go and watch his YouTube channel on all of the commands that you can run, because we only touched on some of them here, and talked about the history and some other things. We will have Max back on at a later date. He is going to be on our new CW operators roundtable to talk about DXing and CW, and what a new CW operator needs to know for, maybe getting that big DX or trying to snag that DXpedition. And Max has got a ton of videos on how he sets up his elecraft stuff and runs split and shows him running DX. It's great. I always learn stuff off of Max's videos. So go and subscribe to Max. But I just put in the description too, the manual. So if you want to go out and connect to one of these servers, get yourself a good telnet client. What's the one that you use here, Max?
Well, this is a commercial one. It's called Secure CRT. When I was working, it supports, SSH connections, and you don't really need this. I would probably start out with your logging software. They'll all have a raw telnet window,
Gotcha,
including Spot Collector and DX Lab, including N1MM, where you can do the kind of the raw telnet input. But while you're operating, you typically are not looking at that feed. Your software's
is filtering that stuff for you.
Filtering that and presenting it on the screen in your band map or your spectrum display.
Gotcha. Yep. A lot of people are saying putty. I use putty. Yep. There's also another one called MOBA term, MOBA X term, I believe it's called.
I'm glad somebody mentioned putty. You just have to make sure and specifically select the telnet protocol and turn on. It's going to be a lot easier if you turn on a split window for the commands.
Yeah.
I encourage everybody to really understand that base level telnet feed. It really will turn a lot of lights on that guys will go their whole career and never kind of understand the mysteries of how it all works.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like over the years, I've asked people about cluster servers, and it's like people are just like, I don't know, it's magic. All I know is like I go into N1MM and I hit this, I log in and then I hit this button and it works. And you're like, don't you want to know, like, the inner workings on, like, what is really going on, and like, how it can work for you? And they're just like, no, I just hit this button and that's all I know.
No, we can do a deep dive. I can show the server side, which is a big mystery. I can show the server side software running and kind of
Oh,
show
that'd be awesome.
all the users connected. And now it's the Windows, version. There's kind of those three flavors out there. Keep in mind, if you're connecting to an AR cluster, that's a different command set than
Than a VE7CC
and
or a
Lee
DX
is
Spider.
good grief. Lee Sawkins, VE7 Charlie Charlie, his commands are a little different. There's some other things you can do with his stuff with a client application too.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we have drank through the fire hose here, but I think that it will inspire some more people to maybe like do some more research on cluster servers and what you can do with them, because it's a whole nother deep dive on ham radio that you could do. And maybe we've inspired somebody to actually run their own cluster server. Who knows? What we should do a whole video. I would love to see the back end and how this thing actually works.
No, good point, Kyle. And we've got a lot of 24/7 skimmer servers on the East Coast and West Coast. We need a skimmer server in every single state.
Yes.
And so there's so many states they don't have anything. We've got 3 now in Utah. I hear in the land of fruits and nuts in Utah, we've got 3 skimmer servers, right? And we need one in every state. Right, you've got a whole Midwest there that a lot of states don't even have them.
Yeah, we have the red pota,
Okay.
and we're gonna put one in Missouri. But it's on the list. There's a list that is this long, right? And the Skimmer server software is like right in the middle, and we still have things that we need to do before we put the Skimmer software or the Skimmer in Missouri. But yeah, you're right. We need one in every single state. That is a very good statement.
Yeah. So, all right. I guess we had to wrap it up, Kyle, and I'd love to do another one. And hopefully you've had, a good number of people watching the live stream. And
yeah. We were up to about 75. There's 55 people watching now, but we were up to about 75 or 80 people watching at one time. And yeah. And hopefully, obviously this video will live forever, and we will definitely have Max back on. Hopefully in the near future. He will be back on in January on the CW Roundtable. But now I'm inspired now, and now I'm fascinated on all of these other things that you can do with spotting server or skimmer servers and cluster servers. So yeah. Max will be on again soon to talk about the back end and all the things that we didn't get to. So yeah.
Hey, Kyle, too. You're doing a great thing here with the roundtable. Keep it going, and everybody, click the like button, hit subscribe to Kyle's channel. He's doing a great service to the amateur radio community.
Thank you,
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just do topics that I like to talk about, right? And if anybody else likes them, that's great. If nobody else watches, okay, I'm still getting my benefit out of it. And I seem to have topics that some people like to talk about, and that's great. And it's my own little world here on YouTube. So,
well, good. You're doing a great job sharing the knowledge. So,
thanks. Thank you. All right. Very good. Thanks, Max. Again, I learned quite a bit, and I don't know if we're going to stream next Thursday. It's between Christmas and New Year's. I might take the week off, but we'll be back. We're going to do some Node Red stuff the first of the year with all of the Node Red guys. We're going to talk about how to integrate Node Red into WSJT X, and how to pull information out of that piece of software and into your Node-RED system. So that is, I think, on the next Thursday that we're going to do, which is, I think
Very
it's
cool.
I think that's like January 4th. Going to talk about FT8 and Node-RED and all the cool stuff that you can do about it or do with it. So, yeah, very good. That's it, folks. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Max. And Max, we're going to see you at Hamvention next year?
Yes, yeah, I've got the reservations. I'm planning on going. So, yeah, hope to run into some people there. You know, the friends, that's what it becomes, like we were talking about. So, yeah. Have Visalia, too. Planning on Visalia.
Yeah, that's in California, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's the big international DX convention.
The DX convention, right. Yeah.
I mean, it covers the contest side of it too, right? So
yeah. When is that?
It's in April.
It's in April.
Yeah, so it's good timing with the contest season, and it's a good one too. It's you should not die having not attended Visalia and Hamvention, right? So
yeah, man. I might have to go out to Visalia. I can't. All right. Yeah. All right. Very good. All right. Thanks, everyone. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below, and we'll try and answer them. I'll shoot Max any questions that I don't know the answer to, which is probably all of them. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, everyone. 73.
73, y'all.